So, of course, everybody has been talking about what this man, Donald Trump, has just done. Everybody is looking at this brand new Bitcoin strategic reserve, but nobody is actually looking at how we could see $1 trillion worth of demand coming for Bitcoin without America printing any money. That's exactly what a $1 trillion budget neutral Bitcoin buy could mean, which is what David Bailey is talking about here on Twitter. So we're going to be discussing not only what a $1 trillion budget neutral buy from America could mean for Bitcoin, but we're going to also be discussing the other countries who are already making a move after Donald Trump made this announcement only 24 hours ago. We've got rumors about China, Middle East, and South Korea all whispering and making a little bit of noise about this strategic Bitcoin reserve. So I think we could be seeing a little bit of FOMO. We're going to be discussing all of this and more with my co-founder from Bitcoin News. Rob, what are your thoughts about one of the biggest 24-hour periods I think I've ever seen in the Bitcoin space?
This is insane, right? It's Bitcoin has been on a 16-year journey going from magic internet money to a $2 trillion asset that is deemed a strategic enough to be held by the United States government. So yes, big news coming out last night, Donald Trump dropping a bomb. And it's pretty much everything that the Bitcoiners could have dreamed for, right? So it establishes two different things. I mean, last weekend, of course, there was this bombshell Truth Social post that Trump put out saying that there's going to be a crypto asset reserve with all these shit coins, right? He's talking about Cardano, XRP, Sol. And then in a follow-up tweet, he said, oh, and I love Bitcoin and Ethereum too. Well, that was sort of a Bitcoiner's worst fear, that Bitcoin would be lumped in with all these altcoins and people wouldn't realize the difference of a true strategic asset, which Bitcoin is. But this new executive order last night was really eye-opening in the fact that it created two separate stockpiles and reserves. One is a strategic Bitcoin reserve with only Bitcoin. This Bitcoin cannot be sold, and it will be first started off with the Bitcoin under the government's possession. And then we have a digital asset stockpile. This digital asset stockpile has all the altcoins in it. And if you read the fine print, it says that it is up to the Secretary of Treasury's discretion whether he wants to sell these. So are we going to see this crypto asset stockpile be sold off in order to buy more Bitcoin? Because as you were saying, it is part of the executive order to find budget neutral ways to accumulate more Bitcoin. So there's a lot of ways that that could be done. And one of them is selling off these altcoins to stack more Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting point you raised there, Rob. It's very true. What is going to go on with these altcoins? I think a lot of Bitcoiners, we were really worried when we did see that Truth Social post last week. Everybody saw this and they saw those dirty token names, XRP, Solana, ADA, and we thought, what is going on? Did we just get rug pulled by Trump? And then this brand new executive order that was signed late last night was a Bitcoin-only executive order. So it's almost as if Trump's done a little bit of a pivot or a double rug pull, so to say. This time he's rug pulled the crypto guys. But I think it's really interesting. This is the question that you asked, Rob. What is going to go on? How is America going to buy Bitcoin in this budget neutral way? Are they going to sell altcoins, or do they already have a plan to accumulate $1 trillion or allocate $1 trillion into buying Bitcoin in a budget neutral way? So this was the tweet I kind of teased in the introduction of today's show. And as you can see, Dylan Leclerc quote tweeted a tweet from David Bailey, the man who's met with Donald Trump on a number of occasions. Dylan says, David Bailey has told you everything Trump will do correctly in regards to Bitcoin in advance with a 100% hit rate. Yet, people are still fading him. So let's see what Dylan was quote tweeting. This is what he was quote tweeting. David Bailey says that America has $39 billion free in the surplus of the exchange stabilization fund that can be allocated to Bitcoin without printing any money. We have $160 billion of selling SDRs, special drawing rights, and we could even raise $800 billion from revaluing gold. So this would hypothetically create $1 trillion of budget neutral Bitcoin demand. What do you think about how America might find money to buy a little bit of Bitcoin, Rob? And do you think there's any other ways that America might get its hands on some cash to raise some capital to buy Bitcoin and put it in this strategic Bitcoin reserve that's just been stood up?
Yeah, so let's run through the three things on that list. So the 39 billion from the Exchange Stabilization Fund. The Exchange Stabilization Fund was established back in the 1930s during the Great Depression. And yeah, I think that was used during the crisis of 2008, 2009 and the stock market crashing and the plunge protection team. They were able to draw on that in order to shore up the stock market and make sure that things didn't get too crazy back then. But yes, I mean, there's $39 billion there that is under the control of Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, and he could go and without an act of Congress, again, all these things need to be done since it's an executive order without Congress's approval. Changing things such as the crypto tax laws and whatnot, you need Congress to do that. But these things can all be done from the executive branch, right? So there's a $39 billion there in the ESF, 160 billion in special drawing rights, which are from the IMF, which is a conglomeration of different currencies, and all the fiat currencies are worse than the dollar. So why do we even hold those? Makes little sense. We could trade those in for Bitcoin. And then, of course, the 800 billion from gold certificate revaluation. What is he talking about there? So America currently has 8,000 tons of gold that are currently on the balance sheet marked at $42 an ounce. However, if you look at the current price of gold, gold is trading at around $2,900. So if you were to revalue those gold certificates that represent the gold that we have from $42 an ounce up to $2,900, that would bring you an extra $800 billion on the balance sheet. We could then deposit that at the Fed and then borrow against it. So it's a lot of accounting tricks and whatnot, but there are ways for the executive branch to get their hands on more dollars to buy Bitcoin through this executive order. It's pretty crazy.
Something a lot of people forget, the fact that, as this chart shows, America has the most gold in the entire world, 8,000 tons. They're very, very interesting. And yeah, I mean, you make some really interesting points there. There are lots of ways America can get its hands on dollars to buy Bitcoin in a budget neutral way. And I think this executive order, I think we need to take a moment to just realize how historic this is. I think Dylan Leclerc has a pretty nice summary here, because this is essentially a Bitcoiner's dream only 2 years ago. But we can see, I think a lot of the naysayers, and we're going to show you a video of a naysayer here in a minute, they've been absolutely shocked and surprised at just how successful and how bullish things are looking for Bitcoin in America, myself included as well. We can see here, Dylan Leclerc runs through the narratives that have been proven wrong over the past 12 months. They said Trump will never acknowledge Bitcoin. That failed. Some people said he will never show at the Bitcoin conference in 2025. Again, this happened just, a week or 2 weeks after there was an attempt on his life. So a lot of people said, oh, this would be a great excuse for him to pull out. But he didn't. He went to the Bitcoin conference. He made a great speech. A lot of people said he will never talk about a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That's wrong. That's happened. A lot of people said he will never free Ross Ulbricht. He's freed Ross Ulbricht. Then the haters said the strategic Bitcoin reserve won't be Bitcoin, but it'll be a US-based crypto reserve. Well, we got a little bit of a hiccup or a little bit of a scare on that one last week, but it does look as if we have a strictly Bitcoin-only strategic Bitcoin reserve. And now it looks as if they will also be buying new Bitcoin for the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So it's almost as if every narrative has failed. And before I turn it back on over to you, Rob, and we have a look at the nation state FOMO that I think we could be seeing, Balaji here also had an interesting tweet. He says this executive order is historic. It focuses primarily on Bitcoin, costs the taxpayer nothing, and it saves billions by not selling. And he really liked the clear distinction between Bitcoin and other digital assets. What do you think about the whole narrative game and the narrative potential win that we are seeing, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, with politicians, I usually like to say I don't like to trust them more farther than I can throw them, right? And Trump's a pretty big dude, 6'3", 250 pounds. You know, he's he's as big as an NFL running back. But yeah, no, I think he's really come through. He's made some promises to the Bitcoin community. And I mean, Bitcoiners were, as soon as he was inaugurated on January 20th, and he didn't free Ross the first second he got into office, and he didn't establish a Bitcoin reserve this first week that he was there, Bitcoiners were like, oh, you see, he rug pulled us. He rug pulled us. No, actually, I mean, it's taken what? A month and 2 weeks, and the three main promises that he made, which were, of course, free Ross, strategic Bitcoin reserve, and ending Operation Choke Point 2.0. All three have come through. I mean, that is pretty amazing, and I think it goes to show the power of the Bitcoin community and just how much weight this asset has now. I think I sent you in the chat here this whitehouse.gov document of the strategic reserve. So that's the first one. If you go to the second link, yeah, and scroll down just a little bit to section 1. Yeah, I mean, they sort of get it, right? I mean, this is a very well-written document. And if we look here, it says Bitcoin is the original cryptocurrency. The Bitcoin protocol permanently caps the total supply of Bitcoin at 21 million coins and has never been hacked. As a result of its scarcity and security, Bitcoin is often referred to as digital gold. Because there is a fixed supply of BTC, there is a strategic advantage to being among the first nations to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The United States government currently holds a significant amount of BTC, but has not implemented a policy to maximize BTC's strategic position as a unique store of value in the global financial system. So, I mean, that lays it all out right there. They get it. They understand that this is a once in a not just generation, but possibly millennia opportunity to stake your claim on the future of money. And that paragraph to open up this executive order really shows to me that they understand what they're dealing with.
They understand that Bitcoin is the future. And I really like the distinction there. Bitcoin has 21 million coins, fixed supply. They didn't necessarily say unlike anything else, but it's nice that they mentioned and recognized that, because this is something that is obviously a very clear distinction between Bitcoin and Ripple and Cardano and all of the other things that were mentioned earlier in the week. Now, something else that I personally haven't mentioned yet, but you did in a tweet earlier, Rob, on the Bitcoin News Twitter account. Again, if you guys are not following the Bitcoin News Twitter account, you should be. That's when you're going to get the breaking news as it happens. Rob's an animal there. He's always typing tweets out on his phone, whether he's at a conference or whatever he sees at these Bitcoin conferences. So make sure you are following us on Twitter. But let's have a look at this tweet here. I've got highlighted the second and the third point that you made reference to in this tweet earlier today. And I thought both of these were absolutely fascinating. And maybe you could run through just how important you think this strategic Bitcoin reserve could be.
Yeah, so it legitimizes Bitcoin and it opens up the door to further actions, right? So we already talked about the executive authority. They're able to use the Exchange Stabilization Fund, but then points 2 and 3. So this really gives, I think, a lot of punching power to Senator Cynthia Lummis and her Bitcoin Act. Her Bitcoin Act, of course, would see us acquiring 200,000 Bitcoin a year for 5 years, bringing the Bitcoin total for the US to 1 million Bitcoin. And this would be entirely budget neutral. How? By going through the gold revaluation method, which we just talked about as well, right? So it's not going to use quote unquote additional taxpayer money to pay for this 1 million Bitcoin buy, but would simply revalue the gold that we have to mark-to-market prices and then transition that from gold to Bitcoin, which I am all for. And I mean, gold, as we know, as we've talked about, is flying around the world right now. It is leaving Switzerland rapidly, returning to the United States. Of course, we know China is stacking a lot of gold. But one thing Michael Saylor has said is, what's a way to sort of rug pull your enemies is to sell your gold on the open market and go on a Bitcoin reserve rather than a gold reserve, right? So is that what is going on here behind the scenes? We don't know, of course, but it's in the world of geopolitics. We have obviously entered a new realm just with this new Trump administration in terms of our dealings with Europe. The old rules-based order that we've known since World War II seems to have just been ended. They've thrown up the table, and now there's going to be new alliances, new pacts, new ways of doing things. And so could rug pulling gold on a geopolitical level be in the cards? Let's see.
Well, who's that going to hurt the most, Rob? I think that's probably going to hurt China the most. I think it's really interesting you bring up the whole geopolitical battle that we can see going on, because literally today, CNBC was running a clip talking about the fact that China is already looking to buy Bitcoin and do a little bit of a Bitcoin backflip. And this is on CNBC. They also mentioned the Middle Eastern Gulf states by name. And again, this was today, literally in the hours after Trump has signed this executive order on creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And then also take a look at the date of this article. Carl Menger says, breaking, South Korea considered to adopt a strategic Bitcoin reserve following the lead of the United States. And I couldn't agree more with how Mr. Menger ended this tweet. The dominoes are falling. So even in the less than 24 hours we've had since this strategic Bitcoin reserve was announced, nation states all around the world are slowly starting to, let's say, make a little bit of a move into Bitcoin, or just show a little bit of interest into Bitcoin. We're seeing some rumors pop up of some very large, very influential nation states around the world talk about Bitcoin. Now, the reason why I thought gold was such an interesting point that you raised, and China, is because China is rumored to be sitting on 20,000 metric tons of gold. A lot of people have been doing the maths. They've been saying, hey, look at how much gold China's importing. Look at how much they're mining. And again, for those who don't know, the gold mined in China, it's not allowed to leave China. All of the mining corporations are not allowed to sell that gold to outside entities. So a lot of people have been saying, look, you cannot look at the chart of gold reserves where China officially, publicly says we only hold 2,000 metric tons of gold. When you run the numbers, they're actually sitting on 20,000 metric tons of gold. And a lot of people who are astute macroeconomic and geopolitical commentators, for a very long time, they've kind of said, look, China is aware that the fiat system is going to die eventually. And they've been preparing for this by accumulating gold. China is playing 4D chess. They're thinking in terms of centuries, not 4-year cycles like America. These are a lot of the narratives that we do hear being thrown around about China. They're perceived as this, 4D chess thinker. They're thinking ahead. They're thinking so far ahead of the West, but they don't have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. They could be sitting on a whole lot of gold that could, again, speculation here, but could be worth a lot less if America starts dumping their gold on the open market to buy Bitcoin. So I think the geopolitical chess is a really interesting rabbit hole here, Rob.
100%. And as I was saying, it seems as if the world is sort of splitting in two, and it'd be interesting to see if China and Russia, of course, and the Eurasian component go off into a gold standard, whereas the US and whatever's left of Europe and the G20 powers go on a Bitcoin standard. This would be a crazy development. But yeah, I mean, it seems as if we're seeing the world bifurcate right in front of our very eyes. And if China is secretly stacking all this gold, and if their listed gold holdings are at 2,000 tons and their actual holdings are 20,000, why would you hold that 10x difference in secret? Because you're trying to rug pull, right? You're trying to rug pull the US dollar and the fiat system with one day you come out on a Monday morning and you say, hey, we've got all the gold, twice as much as America has. We are the new monetary order. You're going to follow us. So, I mean, that's how these things seem to work, right? They're done in secret behind the scenes, and then an announcement is made, and the vast majority of people who aren't paying attention to these things are really caught off guard. But if you're here, you're listening, you're interested in the world monetary order and how Bitcoin plays into it, and you're well ahead of the curve. So know that, and keep your eyes open, because wild things could be happening.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you made there, Rob. Couldn't agree more. Most people are not paying attention. Those who are here today are paying attention. Most people, most of the 4,572 of you guys tuning in between Twitter and YouTube, hopefully are paying attention and hopefully are buying Bitcoin for what could be very cheap and discounted prices that we might not see for very long if America does start buying or plowing $1 trillion into Bitcoin. If you are looking for somewhere to buy Bitcoin, we always remind you guys about our show partner, that is Rhino Bitcoin. We think they're the best place to buy Bitcoin, and you can do everything you need to do on Rhino. You can buy Bitcoin, you can sell Bitcoin, you can use the Lightning Network to send Bitcoin anywhere around the world that you might want to send it. As you guys can see, Rhino Bitcoin has one of the slickest user interfaces in the entire space, and in the not too distant future, you're even going to be doing some really cool things on Rhino Bitcoin. You will be able to borrow against your Bitcoin and do lots of other very unique things with Rhino Bitcoin. This is why we call them the all-in-one Bitcoin super application. And again, they're even giving you guys $10 of free Bitcoin if you sign up using the promo code Bitcoin News. That's one word. Capital B for Bitcoin, capital N for news. Plug it in and get your hands on $10 of free Bitcoin. I don't know how much longer that's going to be free for, but as you can see, All Night Hider in the chat has given you guys the link to Rhino Bitcoin and even the exact promo code that you can use to get $10 of free Bitcoin. So highly recommend you check out Rhino Bitcoin. Get ahead of the curve while you still can. Because again, I don't know about you, Rob, but I don't know how much longer Bitcoin's going to be squatting under $100,000 per coin if we have rumors of the Middle East, South Korea, and China all wanting to follow in Trump's footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, the price action has been really befuddling, right? Trump comes out and creates a strategic Bitcoin reserve last night, and Bitcoin dumps. And then it recovers to around $88,000 today, but then it's just been hovering there. There really is, I think it's just a great example that this is just informational asymmetry, right? Some people know what's going on, and the vast majority, I would say 98% of people, have no idea. That the America just said that Bitcoin, this magical internet money, is of strategic importance and is now not only holding what it already has, but is looking for ways to buy more. This really couldn't be more bullish, and I expect within the coming weeks for price to really match up to the reality of the fact that this race is on now globally. As we saw today in that CNBC clip, CNBC was saying that Brian Armstrong, he was at, of course, Davos a couple of weeks ago at the World Economic Forum. He was talking to the finance ministers of all the major countries, and they're interested. They're like, is America going to do this? He was pretty sure they were. So he said yes, and they're ready to follow suit, right? So we've got G20 European countries that way. We've got China, which is already a major mining player in the last decade. They cut that down in 2021, but could picked it back up again as we've seen the hash rate grow there. We know that Russia is mining Bitcoin, and then small nations too, right? Like El Salvador and Bhutan. So this is a race around the world. America really sounded the starting gun last night in an official way, and I'm excited to see how price plays catch up over the coming weeks and months ahead.
You mentioned two interesting points there, Rob. One of those was hash rate and the mining race that's going on around the world, and we are going to come back to that in a minute. But the second thing you mentioned was befuddling. Some people are befuddled. Some people are confused. And I don't think there's any better clip of somebody being very confused about Bitcoin than this clip that's gone a little bit viral over the past 12 to 24 hours. Because as we can see, some people are, let's just say, still slightly confused about Bitcoin, comparing it to Beanie Babies. So let's see if we've got audio on this clip. If not, let us know in the live chat. But I want to play you a very befuddling clip that I saw on MSNBC earlier today. Okay, so we don't have audio, but we do have the captions for you guys. And what Rachel Maddow said was two very interesting things. And one of those things is something I actually agree with. She called crypto a scam. Now, I agree, crypto is a scam, but I think Bitcoin is very different from crypto. But then the second very interesting thing that she said that I don't quite agree with, she was saying that Bitcoin is beanie babies. I just don't really agree with that narrative. I think that she has clearly not done the work, but as we can see, not everybody is a fan of Donald Trump's strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of a unfortunate byproduct of this last campaign season is that Bitcoin is now seen in America, at least, as a right-wing phenomenon, right? We have Trump, of course, campaigning on it and now creating the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and he's creating these crypto projects like his NFTs and his World Liberty Financial that is buying up a bunch of different altcoins for their own strategic reserve. I don't really know what's going on there. And yes, I mean, a lot of these projects, other than Bitcoin, are vaporware, right? They are pointless, meaningless, sell to the greater fool type of projects. Whereas Bitcoin it fulfills the properties of money better than any other alternative, better than gold, better than fiat, and thus makes it the commodity that will become the base money for the world in the years and decades ahead. So yes, it's so unfortunate that Bitcoin gets lumped into these other scams. But at this point, if you look at Bitcoin and think that it is just nothing but digital beanie babies, you have completely missed the point. And we've got 4 letters for them: HS. HFSP. HFSP. Those are the 4 letters.
I love that. Have fun staying poor. Great note to end things there on, Rob. Now, you mentioned mining a second ago. And what I find really interesting is we saw a new video come out this week of the Giga Chad in Southeast Asia. Now, the Giga Chad who I am talking about in Southeast Asia is the Kingdom of Bhutan's Prime Minister. But we can see here, I'm not going to play the whole 3-minute clip for you guys. We want to try to bring in the news in the most time efficient way possible. What the update is in the Kingdom of Bhutan is that their sustainable Bitcoin mining operations are now increasing the salaries of locals, and it's helping the government on lots of different initiatives like improving the state of healthcare in the country. So again, this is another one of these giants who's turning to Bitcoin mining, as we can see, as this article calls it, as a tool for fiscal resilience. It's pretty incredible that Bitcoin is now helping the fiscal budget of a little country in Southeast Asia who was lucky enough to get on the Bitcoin mining bandwagon early, and they're benefiting from it. And eventually the critics like Rachel Maddow will not be able to argue with the fact that countries are benefiting from Bitcoin all around the world.
Yeah, so the Bhutan Mining Initiative was initiated by their sovereign wealth fund. Essentially, there's this company called Druk Holdings, and it functions as Bhutan's sovereign wealth fund. And they were buying up a bunch of miners from BitDeer and whatnot, and people didn't really know what was going on. But it finally came out about a year and a half ago, what they were doing, and they've set up massive mining operations based off of their clean energy, their hydropower. They're up in the Himalayas. The snow melts, large torrents of water come on down the mountains, and they can power their Bitcoin miners off of renewable energy. And so they're doing it. And this news segment was great. It was off of Al Jazeera. The people there seem pretty happy with what's going on. The prime minister he's befuddled as well as to why more governments aren't doing this. He said thousands of individuals have become billionaires off of Bitcoin. Why aren't more governments? Yes, it is greatly benefiting this small country, and it's just a matter of time before more countries catch on.
Yeah, only a matter of time before more nations realize how important Bitcoin mining is. Again, that probably is a good reminder if you are looking to learn a little bit more about not just Bitcoin, but also Bitcoin mining. We love to remind you guys about the biggest Bitcoin mining conference in the entire world. This is happening in, let me check my calendar, about 2 weeks' time in America. So if you guys don't have your tickets to Mining Disrupt 2025, I would ask you guys, what are you doing? Because this conference is going to be absolutely massive. It is happening in Florida. Again, Florida. That's very easy to get to. There's not any excuses. There are direct flights to Florida from anywhere you might be, whether you're in America or even South America like I am. Florida is very easy to get to, and you're going to want to get there because they have a massive list of very good speakers. Dennis Porter's going to be there. We're going to see some big politicians there. I'm even hearing some rumors that we're going to be seeing some very big names appear at the conference. I'm going to be very careful with what I do say on the stream, but what I will say is that you guys can get 10% off your tickets for Mining Disrupt if you use a promo code Bitcoin News. And again, everything you need for Mining Disrupt or Rhino Bitcoin will be linked down below in the description of today's video, because I think a lot of people talk about this future of this Bitcoin standard, this hyper Bitcoinized world we're moving towards, but you actually get to experience it today by being at the conferences, meeting Bitcoiners in real person. It's a beautiful experience. I love meeting Bitcoiners, and there's absolutely nothing better than shaking the hands of some Bitcoiners. And again, there's going to be a lot of them here at the conference. I didn't stutter. This is the world's largest Bitcoin mining conference happening in America. So highly recommend you guys check it out. I think, Rob, you're going to a conference this week, I believe, a different conference. Where are you headed?
Yes, headed to Austin for the Bitcoin Takeover. Every year in March, there is a large festival called South by Southwest. Used to be just about indie music, but now it's about culture in general. And unfortunately, this has had a lot of cultural impact in America, but they haven't really been too open to Bitcoin. So Parker Lewis and the team over at the Bitcoin Commons in Austin, they've set up a week-long set of events that will be going on, coinciding with South by Southwest. And part of that is also Pleb Lab. They're having their startup day. It's a business accelerator competition where over 20 companies, Bitcoin companies, entered into this competition, and they're whittled down to the final 5. And the winner will be announced next Thursday at Pleb Lab. So yeah, very excited to be attending and be a part of all that.